Okay, class, today I want to talk about the word bedroom and why it is often so difficult for students in Taiwan to pronounce and use. There are three main reasons that there are difficulties with this word. The first is that it is a compound word. That means it is made up of, in this case, two words that themselves are independent words. And over time they have connected themselves into a new meaning that is somewhat related to each of the other two. The second issue that is often a problem is stress. What do we do with the emphasis now that we have taken these two separate, in this case, single syllable words that each have their own stress? We put them together, what happens to the stress? What happens to the stress in different contexts? The third problem is the phonics, because many of the phonics rules completely change the sound. And then in addition to that, some of those sounds change into something that is easy to mistake for a Mandarin or Taiwanese sound. I don't count that as a separate issue, that's just an issue that you will always have. But in this case, the phonics particularly lends to making that mistake. So let's talk about the compound words. We have these two words. Easy enough. Now, compound words in general have a certain progression that they go through throughout their lives. It's like we're trying them out. We don't really know if it's going to work, but we try. So first, we have them as two separate words. And when we have them separately like this, with a nice space between them, we call that open. This is an open compound word. And we still speak really not as a single unit. It's a bedroom. And then as people get more used to this idea, it changes. Now it is not open anymore, but we don't want to really, we're still not quite sure. We're a little more sure, but not really that sure. And so we link them together with a hyphen, and we call these connected. So now we have these two words that are connected into a new single idea. And that might last for a little while. A little while might be a few hundred years, and we never know. And then, when we are sure that we want to do it this way, we will put them together as a single word, and now they are closed. This is a closed compound word. Now, how do you know when to use an open or connected or closed form of a word? The easy answer, and probably the best answer, is to check the dictionary. The dictionary is supposed to keep track of the way people use words and alter the dictionary, or add, usually, augment the dictionary, depending on how people use it normally at the most recent time. So, for instance, cell phone has gone through this progression. It used to be two completely different words, cell and phone. And then we had the hyphenated form. And now, in most places, it's going to be a single word. Now, what does that do to us? See, I don't actually like this for students in Taiwan, because the pronunciation of this word cell and the pronunciation of this word phone are very difficult for students in Taiwan. So in Taiwan, I actually prefer that you use the more open sound, even though people in the US are already using the closed form in many cases. But again, check your dictionary to see what you should do if you're not quite sure where we are in the life cycle of this compound word. The second thing we need to talk about is stress or emphasis. Now, if you recall, when we had this compound word, well, it's still a compound word, but open compound word, each of these words is one syllable, one part, right? We know that because we have one vowel sound for each of these. One vowel sound, one syllable, right? Which means that technically these should be stressed in most contexts, in most cases. Now, because it's only one syllable, we don't actually have to draw the stress, but you'd still need to know that it's there. When we make this into a more closed form, now we have to write the stress. Where does the stress go? In most cases, when we do this closing of the compound, the first word will have the primary stress, and the second word will have the secondary stress. Often the intonation will also follow the stress, which is usually not the case. I know in Taiwan, most people think the intonation is the main thing about stress. No, we'll talk about that some other time. So in this case, we have two words with intonation probably and stress that follows. Bed, room, bed, room. Now, if you have a question, is this that's a yes-no question, the tone actually has to go up, right? So now the strength, the emphasis, the stress will still be on the first part, but the tone will be different, right? Bedroom. So you have to be very careful with the intonation. The reason that we will probably have a greater stress here is because the first word will usually describe what kind of whatever. The stress and the intonation will usually follow with a higher or stronger one followed by the weaker one, even if the words are not connected yet. So, what kind of phone? A cell phone. What kind of office? A post office. What kind of room? Classroom, bedroom, living room. And this will typically be the case. Now, this is usually not about the words. This is about the resulting idea. So, for instance, these things here are often called paper towels, not paper towels, because they are not merely towels made out of paper. So this would be an exception to the rule. In this case, this clearly says what kind of room, and it's still a room. We know it's a room. These are not towels, like your bathroom towels. These are completely new things, a completely new idea. And so it's very difficult to make them into a closed compound word, and we typically will not change the intonation or the stress. We're going to keep them as two separate feeling words, as a single idea. Now, consistent with the stress, we need to talk about phonics and how it is changed by the stress. So, for instance, if we have a primary and a secondary here, we would say these two parts as separate units, bed followed by room. But if we start speaking more quickly and we get lazy, as Americans often are, we will forget about this secondary stress. And if we forget the secondary stress, now this is probably going to be less of an oo and more of an or even reduced, instead of an oo and or reduced all the way down to an The dr in this case becomes less straightforward. We have to take it together. The D plus the R together becomes the dr, right? So this would end up being bedroom, not bedroom, but bedroom. We have this kind of combination many times, right? We have it in drink. We don't say drink, we say drink. We don't say tree, we say tree. Anytime you have this T or D stop followed by an R, it's going to convert to the ch or j. So in this case, if we do not have this secondary stress, then this has to become a single new phonemic unit, j. And because the j to the oo is not really going to be what we do, as soon as we do oo, it becomes more stressed, and that stress went away. So it's going to be one of these, either drum or drum, bedroom. Usually not this. Usually this, because the tone is in the right position for that. if you are in an English speaking position. Now, why is this so difficult for Mandarin speakers? The zh is going to really get you in trouble. But that's not usually where the problem starts. If you recall from what I've said before, or will say again, the biggest problem, the number one problem for Mandarin or Taiwanese speakers when they are trying to speak English is that the tongue position, the mouth position, and the movements of the tongue within the mouth between Mandarin and Taiwanese compared to English are completely different. And as soon as you tell your brain unconsciously that you are speaking Mandarin or Taiwanese, immediately your tongue pulls into a more Mandarin or Taiwanese position. So the problem does not start here. The problem will start where you have the first sound that is similar to a Mandarin or Taiwanese sound. And that would be here, right? Most people will say something like this. Instead of a b, it's going to be a b. And as soon as you do that, your tongue will pull right back into this inverted position with the tip of the tongue down. And if you have this d or j that you're moving to, that means instead of moving from the front, the head, this way with the tip of the tongue, you're moving this way, and you'll get this a sound as you move here. And it will often sound like bai. And you'll see it in the mouth. The sides of the mouth will get tight, right? Bai. Students will often overcompensate and get bigger, right? And then you'll get something more like bai. But because you are now in a Mandarin or Taiwanese speaking position, we again have a sound that is similar that we have to watch out for. And this is what most people will do, 白纸, right? And once you are in this position, instead of a nice or most people will do a nasalized sound, 铮, without closing the mouth. And then because it's nasalized instead of a nasal sound, when you close your mouth, who cares? You can't hear it. All you hear is the right? So what you need to do to stop this progression from happening is to make sure that your B is very good. Now your tongue should already be in position for the next sound. Tip of the tongue right between the teeth, ready to go. Bed, and moving up to the D, right? Bedroom, bedroom. With the B, you have to make sure that you're not too tight. If you say the curling of the lips, the tightness in the lips, your brain will automatically think that you are speaking Taiwanese or Mandarin. And therefore your tongue will pull back into the wrong position and everything will be wrong after that point, unless you specifically work on some of these targets that I teach you about. Okay, so practice with that. Just start with your be first and go from there. All right, that's it.